This is Fantasy Football Picks and Bets presented by Prize Picks Week 1 DraftKings. Research, early look, and early leans every single week on the Fantasy Football Picks and Bet Show. Pete Overzet is going to be running through either on very late on Monday evenings or very early on Tuesday mornings the first look of the week, because later on the Pat Mayo Experience on Thursdays, I'll have my full DraftKings picks, and on Fridays on the Fantasy Football Picks and Bets feed, we're going to have Tyler Tambolini and JT Hayes going through the finalized DraftKings picks. But I think that it is super important to get a grasp of what's going on early in the week. That way you can identify the chalk a lot easier, and maybe it will help you in your season long as well, doing that research, seeing what players are undervalued going into the week and where there might be some holes. So Pete's going to have that every single day of the week, and you can check out more of Pete, obviously, over on the Pete Overzet YouTube channel. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe to Fantasy Football Picks and Bets, because there's going to be action coming every single day of the week, starting today for the rest of the football season. And if you haven't signed up to play in the Mayo Media Network season-long props contest, easy way to do it. You just need to have a Prize Picks account, and you have to enter 5 over-under props, no Monday nighters, every single week during the season, and play a $7.11 entry. That's how it registers that you're in that contest. Now, if you don't have a Prize Picks account yet, it's super easy to do. Go sign up for Prize Picks, use code MMN at checkout, and you'll get a match deposit of up to $100. Or you can just use the link that's down in the description. Full details are down in the description as well if you just follow that link. But if it's $7.11 for every week of the season, there's 18 weeks, it's going to cost you around $130 for the season. So if you just deposit $65 on Prize Picks and you get your match of $65, boom, there's all your money for the year. And the top prize is $3,000 as all a bonus. You'll win weekly prizes as well if you go 5 for 5 in your pick. So please come compete against me. Come compete against all of the hosts and all of the viewers out there. Let's get to Pete Overzet with the Week 1 DraftKings picks.
Guys, we finally made it to week 1. I'm Peter Overzet here on the Mayo Media Network, and today we are doing a first look at the week 1 DraftKings salaries. I'm going to be here every week giving you my first thoughts and impressions on these salaries once they're released. Now, these week 1 salaries were released over a month ago, so we've actually had a lot of time with them. I have chosen not to look at them until just the past day or so, because I didn't want to get anchored to anything. We've had a ton of news, a ton of injuries. We had the teams cutting down their rosters to the 53-man. And so I wanted to actually go into this with a fresh set of eyes. And I think now that all the dust has settled, we can start looking at these salaries, start to make some decisions on who the best values are. And I'll say right out of the gate, there are a ton of incredible points per dollar values. And that is just naturally going to happen when the salaries are set so early and we have so much chaos, so much injuries. We have rookies screaming up draft boards. Their prices haven't been reflected. In drafts, the ADP reflects the change in value. These are static salaries that were released over a month ago. So these are things we can exploit. I think the other part of the, two-pronged DFS thing is also, where is the ownership going to go? And that is something we can handle much later in the week once we see these public sentiments forming. But for now, I think we can just look at the salaries at face value, see who projects as the best points per dollar plays, and start getting a feel for the type of guys we might be putting in our cash in GPP lineups. So why don't we head over here right now? I'm going to share my screen. I have both the DraftKings salaries up as well as our optimizer over at Run the Sims, where you guys definitely need to subscribe. You can get 10% off with promo code Pete over at Run the Sims. You get access to the optimizer, which I'm actually going to use today just as a simple screener for looking at salaries. And also, of course, we have all these other helpful tools. Points per dollar is one of the main things I like to look at early in the week just to see where the baseline values are. So we're going to use that today to kind of help walk around this slate, walk around these salaries and see what's standing out. So I'm filtered here on QB right now. I did sort by salary. No surprise to have, Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, those guys at the top. I think those guys do represent the highest ceiling plays. That's not really that different from last year. We know they're in explosive offenses. We know that they can give us production on the ground. We know their teams are going to score a lot of points. We know they're going to run a lot of plays, yada, yada, yada. You are having to pay a pretty big premium here, in my opinion. But these are going to be, I think, very nice tournament plays, because my hunch is most of the field is going to want to go more cheap at quarterback, just because there are so many values. And we can kind of start to highlight those values by sorting by points per dollar here. And basically, this is just letting us know, based on the salary and projected points, how much are we paying for each projected point? And this just gives us a very simple way to know who are the best values. We see right out of the gate here, Mac Jones at 4,400. He is starting versus Miami. When these salaries were set earlier, he was probably projecting to be a backup. So now we have an information change. A starting quarterback at 4,400 is a pretty nice value there. I still think there's a decent amount of risk with Mac Jones. You know, the rookie opener, the fact that the team might run a ton, the fact that Hunter Henry might not completely be up to steam by week one. So I think there's some concerns here. He's probably not my favorite. He does stand out as a points per dollar value here. I think Teddy Bridgewater also looks like a screaming bargain. You know, I think opposed to Mac Jones, I'm very excited about the Broncos' weapons. When you include Jerry Jeudy on the rise here as a second-year player, when you have Cortland Sutton, who's already broke out, and then you have KJ Hamler, who has been one of the darlings of the preseason, and of course, Noah Fant. I think Teddy Bridgewater has the weapons here to put up a big game against the Giants as well, who I think are going to be a team that struggles and a team who allows a lot of points to be scored on them. So I like Bridgewater. Zach Wilson, a little bit more expensive than Mac Jones, which makes sense because we knew he was going to be a starter, but I think this is a nice price point for him. Zach Wilson has a very fantasy-friendly game. He's going to push the ball downfield. He has a big arm. He has the capability to run. As long as Elijah Moore is out there and good to go week one, I'll feel a lot better about his weapons. So these would be kind of the values. So we have the ceiling guys, we have the values. And then to me, I'm trying to find the sweet spot here for the quarterback position. And to me, Joe Burrow really stands out at 5,700. When you kind of just look at even our base projected points here, Joe Burrow's coming in at 3, 4, 5th, 6th overall in projected points, and yet he's only 5,700. So this represents a pretty big value discount relative to these other guys. I think you could also make a case for Jalen Hurts. You know, at 6,400, you're just going to get a ton of rushing upside from him. So when I'm trying to find that sweet spot of upside, a good discount, points per dollar value, and then also obviously cost, to me, Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts are jumping out to me. And I'm curious on how popular Burrow will be. He's a guy that people were concerned about because of the offensive line, because he was a little hesitant coming back from his injury, because Jamar Chase was dropping balls in preseason games. You're getting a bit of a discount on him, but I still think when you look back on what he represents as a first overall pick, as a guy who was, approaching 50 pass attempts per game last year, and then they add in all these weapons in Jamar Chase. I think this offense is going to have a massive year. I think they're, 90 cents on the dollar of what you're getting with the Dallas Cowboys as far as, a great team, solid running game, and a great a great trio of wide receivers. So Burrow and Hurts right now, as my first look, are some of my favorite plays. I do think there's some other kind of interesting situations in here. We don't know if Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo is going to start. Some of these other news things could shake things up. I also like the Herbert and Ryan Fitzpatrick as a potential kind of contrarian shootout game. And here I'm saying contrarian. I don't even know where the field is going to be yet, but I think both their price points are palatable here at 5,500 for Fitzpatrick and 6,700 for Justin Herbert. Why don't we head over now to the running back position? And we're still sorted here by salary. So the guys at the top, no surprise, Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley. I think these guys are, priced accordingly. They're priced to reflect their upside. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey is the best player in football. When I look at the salary, I think there's such a big gap between Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook this year, just what Christian McCaffrey is going to do in the passing game and what a high floor he gives you, that if I'm finding my way up to Dalvin Cook at 9,100, I'm just going to find the extra 400 to play Christian McCaffrey. I think Alvin Kamara is the interesting one. If you're going to get a $900 discount, Alvin Kamara could have a similar workload to Christian McCaffrey. It seems like the team's fallen out of favor with Latavius Murray. We have Tony Jones Jr. in the mix now. To me, that points to Alvin Kamara getting all the work he can handle. And if they start to give him more of that goal line role, they start to phase out Latavius Murray there, he really could challenge Christian McCaffrey in usage. So I think Alvin Kamara is probably my favorite of these ceiling plays. I always get worried with the Dalvin Cooks and the Derrick Henrys because they're not going to catch a ton of passes and they are pricey. So I think that's something we have to be mindful of. Of course, in tournaments, we can often get a nice buy opportunity on them if the ownership is skewed heavily in favor of the Christian McCaffreys and Alvin Kamara. So obviously we need to be cognizant of that, but strictly in a vacuum, I think Alvin Kamara represents one of the best plays here from the ceiling. Let's sort now by points per dollar, see what values are popping here, and that is on the opposite side. So at the top here, Joe Mixon at 6,200. We're starting to sense a theme here. These salaries were not buying the Bengals this year as a bounce back team, but when you look at the projections, Joe Mixon as the starting running back in this offense projected for 18.35 points here on Run the Sims. $6,200 salary, giving him a nice points per dollar there. He looks very nice. I also love Raheem Mostert here at 5,800. I know people are excited about Trey Sermon, but Raheem Mostert is the starting running back here. His usage in the preseason reflected that. He played all 10 snaps with the first team. Then they took him off the field. They are protecting him. They want him to be the lead guy here. Sermon will have a role, but we know Mostert's upside. He's coming into this season healthy, one of the best offensive lines in football, going against Detroit, which is nothing to worry about. I think Raheem Mostert is a really, really nice play. And then we also see Austin Eckler here. I think similar to Kamara, he's in a nice sweet spot as far as a very affordable price tag at 7,000. And he gives us that great blend of upside and then also floor because we know he's going to catch passes. I think the dynamic that's interesting with Eckler and the thing we're all trying to figure out this year is Eckler going to get goal line carries? If Eckler gets goal line carries, he is the third best back after Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara because now you have a goal line role, you're getting those touches, and you also have the elite pass catching ability. So that is the perfect combo of all this. It's a little more risky to make that bet in season long leagues because if you're wrong, you have that guy on your lineup the whole season. But in DFS, the beauty of this is 1 week. And if the market is going to assume Eckler's not getting goal line carries, and he does, we can take advantage of that week 1. So I think this is a really nice price on Austin Eckler. I think a couple of these other ones are interesting as well. Damian Harris at 5,200. To me, Damian Harris is the kind of play, instead of paying all the way up for the Dalvin Cook and the Derrick Henry, just play Damian Harris because none of them are going to catch passes, but Damian Harris is going to be the goal line back. He could easily score 2 touchdowns in a game like this versus Miami. I think he represents a really nice bang for your buck at 5,200. And then, of course, the controversial Mike Davis, the most controversial player in fantasy right now. You either love him or you hate him. I'm out on him for season long, but I'm way more interested in a 1 week sample. My bear case on Mike Davis is that he's not going to be able to have a large role for 17 weeks. I have a hard time envisioning that. But we're talking about a 1 week sample here. Mike Davis at 5,400 versus Philadelphia. The team released all of their backup running backs before yesterday. They basically now have Cordero Patterson, who's been on the team, converted wide receiver, and they signed Wayne Gallman. But they let Quadre Ollison go. Previously, they let Javian Hawkins go, the UDFA they had signed. So to me, that signals a large amount of confidence from the team for Mike Davis here. And I think at 5,400, the thing I like most about Mike Davis is I think he's going to be the pass catching back. I don't think Wayne Gallman is going to come in there and start catching passes and limiting Mike Davis. So I think Mike Davis is going to be the bell cow week 1. And we know as the season goes on and as the pricing gets more efficient, it's very, very hard to find a bell cow running back for 5,400. That might be Mike Davis week 1. I'm going to guess he ends up being extremely chalky. So probably more of a cash game play, more of a single entry 3-max guy that you work other contrarian plays around. But I can't deny that Mike Davis looks really nice here at 5,400. So yeah, I would say of these guys, Mike Davis, Kamara, Eckler, they look like my preferred guys. My guess is we see a ton of studs and duds lineups. People going Damon Harris to get up to Christian McCaffrey, people playing Mike Davis to get up to Christian McCaffrey. I think I might then try to live in the middle range. I could see myself with lots of Eckler, Mostert, and Kamara combos there if people want to go studs and duds. Let's head over now to the wide receiver. And obviously, we don't have time to go through every single player, every situation. This is more to give us kind of just a feeling for how the slate is looking, because the dynamics can be very different. All it takes is one, elite running back to open up at a cheap price, and the whole slate, dare I say, could be flipped on its head. So this is just getting us familiar with it. So I apologize if I haven't talked about your favorite player, but I'm just trying to get kind of the high end, the extreme values, and who's looking like the best plays right now. Let's check out the high end at wide receiver. As expected, no surprises. Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins. I would say one surprise would be at least how they're being drafted in season-long leagues as using this as a proxy for the most valuable wide receivers. Diggs is normally going in this top 3 with Adams and Hill. So just purely by that, I think he's representing a little bit of a discount. I'm guessing his salary is a little lower just because they are going against the Steelers. I assume the DraftKings algorithm is a little worried about the matchup for Diggs, whichever wide receiver quarterback matchup he has. I think that might offer a nice opportunity here just because Diggs is so good. And you can see here, he does have a better points per dollar than Tyreek Hill, who is 600 more and projects for a similar amount of points. I don't think you can go wrong with Devontae Adams, even at 8,300. I don't think any of us will be surprised if Devontae Adams' price tag, as the season progresses, gets up to that 9,100, 9,200 range. He's been there before. If they use him how they've had previously, where they're basically treating him like a goal line back, they're doing screens, they're doing fades. Aaron Rodgers is manufacturing targets for him in the red zone. It is really, really hard for him not to be a value at 8,300. So similar to the Christian McCaffrey thing, I think because there's so much value at wide receiver on the slate, and we'll take a look at that in a second, I think Devontae Adams is going to be very popular as people go with, a couple cheap guys and then pay up to get to Devontae Adams. So it's hard for me to turn my GPP brain off right now. But as far as an awesome points per dollar play, as far as an awesome ceiling play, it's really hard to fade Devontae Adams. And we can sort here by points per dollar, and we can see what wide receivers are popping from this perspective. We see right at the top here, Marvin Jones Jr. at a $3,600 salary, incredibly cheap, projecting for 13.51 points, looking at Run the Sims baseline projections. And we see that gives him an incredible 3.75 points per dollar value. I get it. Marvin Jones, we know what Marvin Jones is, right? We do this song and dance every year. Marvin Jones is the guy that can explode for the TD game, or he can just be an absolute bust. He's the epitome of I prefer him in a GPP because it's a bit of a mystery box what we're going to get out of him. However, at this price, almost all of the downside is baked out. Even last year on the Lions and previously, he would always be one of the, 5,000 to 5,500 guys. He was always priced in that range where you are having to pony up to get a peek at that upside. But at 3,600, we know he's going to get targets. DJ Chark coming into the season a little banged up. They did release Cullen Johnson as well, which he was an outside target that could kind of eat into some of these targets for DJ Chark and Marvin Jones. So this tells me the team feels incredibly comfortable with this 3 wide receiver set with Marvin Jones, Laviska Shenault, and DJ Chark. And Marvin Jones showed great rapport with Trevor Lawrence in the preseason. I was impressed with what I saw. The season-long community is very excited about Marvin Jones, almost similar to Mike Davis. And again, I don't necessarily want to be making a bet on Marvin Jones for the full season, but in week 1 at 3,600, I think he's a very, very nice play. You'll notice another theme with some of these values here. are the rookie wide receivers. Jalen Waddle at 3,600, Jamar Chase at 4,800, Terrence Marshall at 3,000, Devonta Smith 4,500, Rondale Moore 3,000. So a lot of familiarity here as far as the rookies, and it makes sense. Year after year, we continue to see rookie wide receivers produce. For a while, it would be, hey, these guys take a long time to, get up to speed. I even remember the DeAndre Hopkins year when he came in. He had a decent rookie year, but it was nothing to write home about. It was not a T. Higgins or a Chase Claypool like explosion, or a Justin Jefferson being on the extreme end there that we now see with regularity. So I think this is something we can exploit. You don't want to roll out a lineup full of rookie wide receivers because there is going to be way more bust potential. But would it surprise anyone if a Waddle, a Chase, a Marshall, a Smith, or a Moore just absolutely obliterated their price tag and had 100 yards and a TD in week one? It wouldn't surprise me. These guys are talented guys on interesting offenses, and I think I'm going to be wanting to sprinkle these guys in. My guess is a Marvin Jones becomes the chalk, and that playing a Waddle, a Chase Smith, these rookies that I keep mentioning, I think that might be a way to get both upside and be unique. So keep a tab on these rookies. See if we get any more information as the week progresses as to how the team plans to use them. I would say Rondale Moore is one of the guys I'm most confident in his week one usage. I think there's still a little bit of a mystery between how many targets is Jamar Chase going to command? How involved is Jalen Waddle going to be in the offense with Will Fuller out week one? That's a feather in his cap, but he's still a rookie that we don't know necessarily how he's going to be used. But with Rondale Moore, I feel like the team has already tipped their hand. I mean, they're going to use him like Deebo Samuel. That's how they were using him in the preseason. Cliff Kingsbury was manufacturing touches for him, the little bubble screens, the end arounds, all that stuff in the horizontal air raid offense suits perfectly with Rondale Moore's skill set. Obviously, in DraftKings with this full point PPR, it gives us a really nice floor. It gives us access to a ceiling, and he's $3,000 here. He's the stone minimum. And now I know we're back. We're back because I just got to say on a DFS show, stone minimum. So we are officially back into DFS season. I like Rondale Moore at that price tag. Then kind of when we talk about the sweet spot, so we have the high-end ceiling guys, we have these cheap guys. Another pattern emerges for me here as far as some of these second-year wide receivers. These second-year wide receivers are probably underpriced relative to their ceiling and also probably have a better shot of just producing right out of the gate. That familiarity of being in the league for a year is important, and we do see rookies get off to slow starts. So I like to then turn my eyes to a guy like Laviska Shenault and a guy like T. Higgins. And again, I can't turn off my GPP brain here, but if everyone's playing Jamar Chase because of his price tag, and if everyone's playing Marvin Jones, well, boom, we have two of their teammates who are also values, who are probably won't be as popular and have equally, if not greater ceilings in T. Higgins and Visca. So I think those guys look extremely interesting to me. They grade out well as far as price, points per dollar, baseline, and ceiling projection. Those guys I think are very intriguing. And Jalen Reagor as well. I think you can let your stack decisions kind of determine, whether you want to use a guy like Reagor or not. I know he feels a little scary, but if you're playing Hurts, I think Reagor at that price also makes a ton of sense. And then the last guy we have to mention here, and I assume he is going to be the chalkiest, most popular play on the slate, is Marquez Callaway. He screamed up draft boards all of August. The Saints are incredibly thin at wide receiver with Michael Thomas on the shelf. Traquan Smith has just never been too exciting with the opportunities that he's had. And Marquez Callaway has looked absolutely phenomenal in preseason. He's a good stylistic fit with Jameis Winston. And now here he is at 3,400, way underpriced. I think if DraftKings were able to get a mulligan on these salaries, he'd probably be 5,400. I honestly think he's mispriced by a good $2,000 here relative to his expected role and how well he looked in the preseason. That said, I am not going to want to play a 40% owned Marquez Callaway in tournaments in week one, where there's so much we don't know, so much randomness, so much variance. We do want to avoid those situations. I think he is a great cash game play, if you want to go that route, because he just does grade out as such an insane points per dollar play there. But I'd be careful in tournaments. We'll know more as the week goes on. Here at Run the Sims, this projected ownership will fill out as we get more information, and you have all the information you need here to make your best possible decisions throughout the week as you fiddle with your DFS lineups. So let's head over to tight end as well. We'll continue on our path here of looking at the ceiling guys first. Travis Kelce, no surprise, 8,300. George Kittle, 6,300. Hawkinson at 4,900. We don't have Andrews on the main slate, I believe. So that is why he's not in the mix here. Look, Kelce, we know, has the ceiling. That's a very expensive price tag for Travis Kelce. But we saw last year he can often pay it off. But you can even notice here, $2,000 cheaper George Kittle, better points per dollar play. I do think Kittle, Kelce, and Hawkinson are in a tier of their own as far as the ceiling that they can access. And even Kittle and Kelce might be in another ceiling or tier of their own ahead of TJ Hawkinson. So I think Kelce will probably not be a super popular DFS play just because of this price tag. I think if you're saving money elsewhere, it could definitely make sense to jam Travis Kelce even at this price tag. And now let's check it out here by points per dollar. Tyler Kroft, the new tight end one for the Jets, jumping out. The team does trade Christopher Herndon, who we have collectively been drafting, playing in DFS for years, and it just wasn't happening for him. The Jets move on. This makes Tyler Kroft one of the only tight ends on the roster. They did bring Ryan Griffin back, but just based on usage and based on how the team has been talking about him, I think Tyler Kroft is going to be their tight end week one. And as we know in DFS, if there's one position to punt along with defense, it's tight end. There's so much randomness at the position. We're trying to bink a touchdown. Those are very hard to predict. So you're getting the starting tight end on a team in a solid matchup versus Carolina here for $2,500. The, dare I say, stone minimum. I think he is going to be a very popular tight end pump play, but rightfully so. As I go on the list here next, Kyle Pitts is honestly probably one of the most interesting guys to me. He grades out here as a very nice points per dollar play at 4,400. He does give you that ceiling. He is the rookie. We know tight ends can be slow to start, yada, yada. But if they just come out of the gate and use him as a glorified wide receiver at 4,400 and getting to use that in your tight end position, that's an incredible blend of floor and ceiling. So Kyle Pitts is a guy jumping out to me right now as we look at this. Even though I see Anthony Ferkser here popping up as a points per dollar value, doesn't excite me. He was splitting time with multiple tight ends in this offense throughout the preseason, guys like Luke Stalker. I think Ferkser is going to be in a pretty gross committee. So I get that he grades out well, but I mean, you really are clutching your rosary beads and praying for a touchdown. And then you see even the expensive guys popping up as better points per dollar plays, George Kittle, Travis Kelce. And I'll go ahead and toss in CJ Uzoma. I think similar to Tyler Kroft, he's a starting tight end on a capable offense that's going to score a lot of points. Uzoma, he's not, this mega talent that's going to do a ton with his targets, but I think he can earn a few targets a game. I think he can be a red zone option, and he's the perfect guy to toss in with your Burrow stacks. If you are doing those double stacks, if you're playing a smaller tournament and you're rolling out a triple stack with a couple of the receivers, I think you can toss in CJ Uzoma at 3,000 and like your chances at maybe binking a red zone roll there. So as usual, death taxes in the tight end position being relatively thin here. I think you can either pay up for some of these studs, you can punt it off with an Uzoma or a Tyler Kroft, or you can maybe find that sweet spot in the middle with a guy like Kyle Pitts. I think that's kind of where I'm leaning right now. But as usual, all kinds of different directions you can go at the tight end position. Let's head over to our last position here, defense. Defense is one that we don't generally like to pay up for. Similar to tight ends, we're trying to get the defensive special teams touchdowns, and those are extremely hard to predict. We're either looking for, D-line, O-line mismatches. We're looking for, suspect quarterback play, a quarterback who is prone to turn the ball over a ton. And we can see that kind of reflected here on the high end. The 49ers versus Detroit here. Jared Goff in his first game as a Lion, that seems like a ripe spot. New England here versus Tua. The Giants versus Teddy Bridgewater, I think I'd actually prefer to be on the other side of that. I think the Denver defense will be able to exploit this probably more than the Giants will. The Broncos here at 3,300, $500 cheaper than the Giants. Give me that side. I think I prefer that. Carolina is an interesting one to me. They're priced accordingly. But Zach Wilson's first start, I think there could be some growing pains there. So the high end makes sense, but I generally am not paying up for these high end defenses. I think, especially in week one, where, defensive fantasy performance year over year isn't incredibly sticky. We like to think we're good at predicting it, but the numbers say otherwise. So I'm probably not going to be paying up for one of these teams in week one. Probably would rather go dumpster diving here. When we look at points per dollar, you got the Bengals at 2,000 there, the minimum versus Kirk Cousins. You can play the Lions versus what will likely be Jimmy Garoppolo. You can play the Browns versus Mahomes. Okay, I don't want to do that. I'm just looking at the, I was sorting by base projection. That was bad. Rewind. Let me sort by points per dollar here. This will help us out. Okay, so now we have the Falcons versus the Eagles here at 2,000. They are the minimum. The Bills versus Pittsburgh looks very nice. The Bills defense is going to be good. We know Big Ben is always prone or likely to have a back-breaking pick six. I think targeting Ryan Fitzpatrick, similar to Big Ben, we like targeting these gunslingers because they push the ball, they're willing to take risks, and defenses can often take advantage of that and turn that into 6 points for our defense there. Couple other interesting ones here. I think the Texans, I don't know. I know it's Lawrence's first start. I don't feel as good about that. But in general, we want to be living in this territory, not paying up for defense and trying to find our favorite play here on the low end as far as points per dollar. I'll go ahead and say the Bills are jumping out to me as my favorite option here. Winding down here, I did just want to use one thing and look at our optimal lineups so far here on Run the Sims. This just gives us kind of one more final way to see who is popping the most. What are the best points per dollars that are ending up in lineups? We do see here a lot of the names we mentioned: Jamar Chase, Marvin Jones, McCaffrey, Shenault, Eckler, the rookies, Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, the Bills. So you can just immediately see by doing that exercise of looking at the best points per dollar plays and the highest ceiling plays, we then go run the numbers and we get some confirmation on that. I would say the most surprising thing to me is that the optimizer is spitting out so much Patrick Mahomes. I think that definitely is interesting. I would have thought that it would have wanted to give us maybe a cheaper quarterback and paying up elsewhere. You can also tell here that the optimizer really likes going cheap at wide receiver and paying up for tight end, running back, and quarterback, which I also think is an interesting thing. And generally one of the things we can most exploit in tournaments, because people don't necessarily want to pay up for a Devontae Adams, but you can flip the build pretty easily, right? You avoid the Marvin Jones chalk, you play Devontae Adams, you go down from Patrick Mahomes to one of those, cheaper quarterbacks, say a Joe Burrow type, and then you get unique on the field as well. So lots is going to change before we submit our week one lineups, but obviously just wanted to take a first look here. We will have the full set of DraftKings picks up on the channel later this week, so you can keep an eye out for that. Of course, be sure to check out Run the Sims. It is your one-stop shop for all your optimizer, your hand building needs. I just use the optimizer there as a hand building screener, just using all of those filters for points per dollar, ceiling, salary, all that good stuff. We will be here, like I said, every week. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thank you to Pat Mayo for having me. I'm Peter Overzet. Good luck in week one, guys.
Yeah!